Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, I know you're living in this world too, where we're just counting down until school is back in session. we're living that life. Kids home from school for Christmas break, and oh boy, it's been a day in the Lane household.
Yeah, for us, thankfully, our daughter's a little older, so she's a little more self-sufficient. But it's for me, it's the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you before we recorded, I spent most of yesterday. We're recording this on Thursday, but I thought Wednesday was Thursday until it was probably close to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Wednesday! I thought it was Thursday." So yeah, I'm just all kinds of off. I know I look at the calendar, but apparently not the dates to see what games are going on
Mm-hmm.
that night and all that stuff. But I know obviously when the Celtics play because I cover them, but what day of the week it is, that's a complete crapshoot at this point for me.
I've been lost as well. I put the trash cans out on the wrong day. And part of it was, a lot of stuff was closed the day after Christmas. Christmas was Sunday,
Yes.
and yeah, I'm a mess this week. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy, but nonetheless, the NBA still has stuff going on for us to dive
They do.
into. And look, tis the season for sharing and giving and caring and showing people that you appreciate them and that you care about them. So let's start here. The Magic and the Pistons. They
Yeah.
fight in this game. Did you like
That was a
that lead in
mess.
there?
Yeah, that
um,
was well done. I liked it.
this was unfortunate to see what went down there. I mean, Mo Wagner with the shove out of bounds and the retaliation and the punch to the back of the head, and oh my goodness, suspensions are going to be coming here, right?
Yeah, for sure. So my guess is so. Just if anybody didn't see what happened by now, the Magic had a turnover very late in the first half. There was only about 30 seconds or so left to play. Ball was turned over. Killian Hayes coming up the right sideline, right in front of the Pistons bench, and Mo Wagner basically hip checked him. Like, would have been a nice hockey play into the boards, but sent him flying. Mo Wagner then kind of his momentum carried him a little bit into the Pistons bench. Hamidou Diallo then gave Wagner a little shove from behind, and then Killian Hayes popped back up and looked like he threw a punch and connected with the back of Mo Wagner's head. He went down. The Magic bench, every player that wasn't in the game, minus Terrence Ross, the veteran, they all took off and ran to the other end of the floor. So, by NBA rules, which they generally are pretty stickler for,
Mm-hmm.
you leave the bench area, you're going to get a game suspension. So that's going to be probably 8 different Magic players are going to get a 1-game suspension. My guess is Wagner will probably get a game suspension for his role in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Hayes will probably get 2 or 3 games for throwing the punch, and Hamidou Diallo probably gets a suspension as well. And then it was a little hard to tell if anybody from the Pistons they've become more liberal. Remember, for a little while it was like you said a step on the court at
Yeah,
all.
you step on the
Now,
court and you're
like,
suspended,
they're a
right?
little more reasonable, like with the bench area.
Es-
So don't think
uh,
anybody on the Pistons is in trouble with that.
Especially with Wagner going into the Pistons bench, like not intentionally. He
Yeah,
lands in the Pistons bench. Like if you're in the bench, it's kind of hard with all the fracas going on. If you
exactly.
accidentally stepped onto the floor, I think they would have to be
Yeah,
lenient there. But so
yeah,
how does the NBA handle this? Obviously, they would have to stagger these
yeah.
suspensions. Otherwise, the entire Magic team would basically be suspended their next
Yeah.
year. What would you just forfeit or call up your whole G League squad, or what do you do there?
Yeah, so generally, so that's been the question of the day around Twitter, especially for Magic fans. Are can we call up the whole Lakeland team? The answer to that is no. Those guys aren't on NBA contracts.
Hmm.
10-day contracts don't start yet, so that's not a thing. The NBA is obviously not going to forfeit a game. So what they've historically done in these situations, now it hasn't happened a lot, but it has happened where you've had multiple suspensions come down. They stagger them, and what they'll do is they will go through and kind of say, all right, well, because the other thing to factor in too, Orlando has a couple guys who are out long term with injuries still. Jonathan Isaac, Chumo KK rather, and Jalen Suggs are all still injured and not playing. So my guess is what will happen here is if the 8 players receive a 1-game suspension, it'll probably be 4 of them serve it one night, 4 of them serve it the other night. And how they do it is they just go in alphabetical order by last name. So if they decide we're going to do 4 and 4, it'll be the first 4 alphabetical order, and then the next 4, and then that's how it'll go down for the Magic. We'll be shorthanded for a couple of nights with this. So that's my guess is how this plays out. We'll see, where this all comes together in the end. To me, it's not a great sign for Orlando that it's 4:30 on Thursday. Yes, it is Thursday. I did look at the calendar. That when we're recording that this is not out yet. That probably means there's stuff going on and it's a little more complicated than player X is going to miss one game or anything like that. So that is my guess here.
Agreed. Yeah, that's probably the way they're going to have to handle this, because like you said, you can't just say, well, you're all suspended and next game, no thanks, we're going to refund all those tickets. No, they're not going to do that.
No,
they're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's not a thing anybody would ever do. And then what we may see, which we see more often than not after the trade deadline, we could see a situation where a guy like Jonathan Isaac is in uniform just to meet the 8 players in uniform rule for the NBA, but there's no intention of him actually seeing the floor. That's generally if a team makes multiple trades at the trade deadline and is down several players, we see that sometimes with this. So the guys I feel worse for in this entire situation are the Magic's two-way players, Kevon Harris and Admiral Schofield, because they don't make millions of dollars. So they're going to lose a big chunk if they are suspended for a game and hit with a fine or anything like that. So we'll see, but my guess is we're going to get news on this very soon, because these games are played. They're both teams are playing tomorrow, Friday night. So you're going to they won't wait till Friday morning usually to do this. So want to at least give the teams a day to prepare.
Right. We should hear anytime now about exactly what's going to go on with that. After the Lakers lost to the Miami Heat last night, LeBron had some comments. I've talked a lot about this with Lakers Nation, but I want to get your take, Keith. LeBron saying he wants to contend, saying he doesn't want to be out there just to play basketball. He's at a point in his career where he wants to make sure he's contending. That a lot of it isn't going to be about his body, in terms of the context was, hey, LeBron, how much longer are you going to play? That was essentially the question posed to him. And his answer was, well, it's not necessarily my body. It's my mind. Am I on a contending team? Can I continue to put my body through this? Can I continue to ramp myself up mentally and do those sorts of things? And in order to do that, I need to be, in a position to compete for championships, because that's what I want to do right now. There was a much easier way to answer this question. He could have simply said, oh, we'll see how my body feels, or given the typical answer. Instead, he used it as an opportunity to most took this as kind of take a shot at the way this roster is constructed currently. So what are your thoughts on this situation? LeBron, this is maybe the first time this season anyway that we've seen him publicly put a little pressure on the front office.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I know some people, of course, because they get to go to this on social media, is, well, you shouldn't have built such a crappy roster.
I saw that too. Yep.
All the things that people say. But I really think this is really the situation of LeBron didn't build the roster. I mean, that's, does he get consulted? Sure. So does everybody. That's a star player on a team. I mean, we talked about, Brad Stevens has talked about, he runs things by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Doesn't mean they're in there, making trades and doing the negotiations. That's not what's happening. It's just, hey, would you be okay if we did this? Yeah. Who do you want to play with? Those kind of things. So to me, I think it's exactly what you said it is. This was LeBron sending a little bit of a message of, hey, we got to fix this. Like, he signed for 2 more years after this now. So it's really full Lakers control. Yes, LeBron could ask for a trade if he really wanted to, just to clear it up, because it's come up all morning long today. He can't be traded this season. He signed his extension. It's not too long, but it's too large in terms of value, and he signed it too late for him to be traded this season. His trade restriction lifts after the trade deadline, so it would be after the Lakers season is over. That's when LeBron becomes trade eligible. But moving back to it, my guess is he's sending a little message of, hey, we got to fix this. I don't know that he's saying it's right now, today, like fix it, because I think LeBron is also smart enough to look and say, hey, we're 3.5 games already out of just the 10th seed, and that's the last play-in spot. We are 5 games out of the 6th seed. AD, who knows when he'll be back. I don't think he's saying, let's go do this, because I think he's also savvy enough to know that there may not be the trade to fix it today available to him
Sure.
and the Lakers right now. So I think for him, this is more just a, hey, you better have a really great plan for the summer, or we may be having a completely different kind of conversation that involves my future with this team.
Right, right. And that could very well be the case. A lot of Lakers fans took this to mean like, hey, you need to do a trade now. A lot of fans turned around and said, well, clearly you should have done the Buddy Hield and Miles Turner trade that was on the table. And they said, no, we're going to wait. Got cold feet at the last minute. That's fair to criticize for that, no question. But then you've got the segment of fans that are saying, well, this is, you reap what you sow. This is LeBron's fault anyway. LeBron, his job description is not to pull the trigger on trades. Right? It's not LeBron calling up the league office and saying, hey, we've got this trade. Here are the specifics of it or anything like that. The front office has the responsibility for making the trades. They have said no to him before. Not saying he's blameless in this situation, but I have a hard time flipping this around and saying, well, it's LeBron's fault that Russell Westbrook's on the team and you tore apart the championship squad anyway. Does he get consulted? Like Keith said, yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's all on him or even his responsibility. That's not his role on the team. That's not the way that it goes. It's like being upset with a player for the moves the coach makes or something like that. Like it's not in that job description. Even if the player has some sort of a say in there, ultimately it's the front office that has to pull the trigger, that has to make the final call in these situations. So it's on the Lakers front office to figure it out. Even if you do want to put some blame at the feet of LeBron or Anthony Davis or Clutch Sports or whatever, which I think that's fair. There's plenty of blame to go around, but ultimately the front office is the one that has to make those decisions.
Yeah, I think this is a big old blame pie, and there's plenty of servings for a lot of different people here, and LeBron is one of them. But yeah, it's I take this more to be of a, hey, I'm not saying you got to do something right now, but we need to show something moving forward. Otherwise, this relationship may run its course sooner rather than later.
Does this make LeBron is 20 plus games away from passing Kareem essentially? Does this become the rain cloud over that whole celebration?
Yeah, that's a good question. I tend to think no, because this is not like LeBron is just barely hanging in there and he's only on a roster so he can pass Kareem, right? Then that would feel cheap, right? That would be
he's not shooting at the wrong basket to get the rebound for the triple double, like Ricky Davis.
Exactly. And he's not, just out there, and he's still very, very good. I mean, and he's played really well, on this road trip too. He's played, really well. I think it's it's unfortunate it's not going to come in a season where they're going to contend for a title, but I don't think it cheapens the accomplishment any. I think the only way that would have been is if it was like, all right, this guy doesn't have it anymore and he's just hanging on long enough. Now, it would be, and this is not going to happen, obviously, but if he scored the winning basket, walked off the court and was like, I'm done, then I'd be like, whoa, what the heck, man? Like, that's not cool. But that's clearly not a thing either. So I think it's a testament to his greatness and longevity. That when he gets there, and it should be celebrated as a massive accomplishment, as hopefully it will be.
Yeah, it took a long time to get there. This was a record that we thought was never going to be broken, and yet here we are, on course to see that record fall. And even if this season has been horrible, and last season was as well, I don't think that necessarily should diminish a 20-year career's worth of accumulation of all these points. That it's absolutely incredible. All right, let's move on. Let's talk. I think this is kind of interesting before we get into all the health stuff. Christmas Day viewership around the NBA was up 5%. And the reason why I think this is noteworthy is because this year, the NBA had the misfortune of also going against the NFL. And if you look at the NFL's ratings, they blow the NBA's out of the water. It's not even close. Even looking at that disgusting Broncos-Rams game from Christmas Day, even that, I mean, just destroyed anything the NBA had out there to offer. But that's also to be expected. I think the fact that Christmas Day viewership is up 5% for the NBA, despite having to go head-to-head with the NFL, I think that's something that's worth mentioning and is a good sign for the league moving forward. It's something that they can point to when they're negotiating new TV contract deals.
Yeah, for sure. Because what if you're the NBA? What you're going to point to is, hey, even with this, we still
Yeah.
drew more eyeballs, and we still drew a lot of people watching. And what it's probably 3 or 4 times in a cycle. The NFL will put multiple games on Christmas Day. They obviously will. My guess is whenever it falls on a Saturday or Sunday, maybe even a Monday, because probably not if it's a Friday. I don't think they'll really do that because that just kind of messes up their week too much. But they'll probably do it at least on the weekend days, maybe even a Monday. Now for the NBA, you can say, hey, so that's still most years we've got our kind of marquee day, to ourselves. And then the big thing for the NBA is going to be what comes now. Are more people tuning into those ABC games? TNT will be starting up there. Regular Thursdays again here in another week or so. So once they get going with that, then are we, are we pushing numbers up higher there? Those will be what becomes very, very important. We just saw the NFL sold their Sunday ticket package to Google, and it'll be offered through YouTube instead of DirecTV for the first time ever. And then there's a lot of talk of could an Apple or Yahoo or Google, somebody like that, jump in on the NBA League Pass, or could they just
Could change
like
League Pass.
Apple? Yeah, or could Apple say, all right, we're not going to do that, but we want a game or two a week. We want a night, much like TNT has. So that's my guess is we're still going to see the NBA is going to rake in, billions upon billions of dollars. It's going to cause the cap to go way up, over the course of a number of years, and everybody's going to get a little bit richer in the long run.
I'm trying to remember the MLS. I can't recall off the top of my. I was in World Cup mode. I don't remember who they ultimately signed on
Apple.
with, but was it Apple? Okay, so now, so their games are going to be streamed on Apple. Now, I think there will be some nationally televised ones, but I think that, kind of helped pave the way. And now we're seeing this with the NFL. Maybe the NBA goes that route as well. And you wind up with Apple, you wind up with whoever. And the way we consume games in terms of League Pass could drastically change in coming seasons.
Yeah, and if that happens, all I'm going to say with the streamers, and we have a couple of the different streaming options, is if we're watching live games, you need to make it better and easier to flip between games.
Yes.
Like that's the number one problem that where whether it's cable or satellite still has a beat, it's way easier to flip between games than it is with those streaming services. So that's something that needs to get fixed for sure.
I still think it's never going to happen, at least not anytime soon. But from the consumer side, give me one place to watch all the games. Just put all the games one place. Get rid of this blackout nonsense and all that. Again, there's too much money and it's not going to. But from the consumer side, that's what everybody has been asking for forever, and it just has not happened up to this point. Who knows? Maybe someday we can dream. We can dream. There'll be some service to just all the games. Period. And off you go.
Yeah.
But
someday.
All right, let's talk about something that was really exciting. Luca, we didn't have a show yesterday. Luca went off the other night against the Knicks. Keith, it was beyond just, so Luca finishes with 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists, which that is an insane stat, right? Like we don't want to gloss over that. That is absolutely incredible.
Can I throw in something that gets left out of that too?
Yeah.
Two steals, 1 block, and only 4 turnovers in a game where he did all that too. Like crazy. It's just, that's a line that we're never going to see.
It's
like Luca Wilt for 25 pages, then maybe one other guy jumps in there.
Right.
It's like, when you're doing something, Wilt's the only other guy who's even approached, like you've accomplished something. But I know you want to get into more because it was pretty important what he did too.
Yeah. And when it was in a win that went into overtime, and the way that game even got into, like, this game is an instant classic. You say, do you
for
believe
Mavs fans at least?
Well, for Mavs fans, sure, but just
sure.
Like you would not imagine that you would see this kind of a finish. What, the Mavs were down like 9 with about 40 seconds to go.
They were down 9 with 33 seconds left,
and they come back to tie it, go over into overtime to win. Just that right there. Forget the 60 points, the 21 rebounds, and 10 assists. Omit that. Just you're down 9 with 33 seconds to go. Like, that is about as improbable as it gets that you're going to find a way to come back and actually tie that game. And yet Dallas does it and then goes on to win in a game when Luca puts on an all-time performance. I mean, this is the perfect storm to make an all-time classic game.
Yeah, because what would have happened was you would have felt like, well, it's cool that he put up those numbers, but they lost, right? Because that
Right.
would have been
Yeah.
always, Luca had this great game and a loss, but getting the win, the game was, they were down by 2. He intentionally missed a free throw
Mm-hmm.
to get the ball back and tied it. So that's what's in it in overtime. This came from ESPN. Teams were 0 in 13,884. So in 13,884 games in the last 20 seasons, when trailing by at least 9 points with 33 seconds or more to go, or 33 seconds or less to go. So yeah, history made, not only his own individual line, but coming back to get that win. Just incredible stuff.
Yeah, to have both of those things happen in the same game, that line plus the way that game played out, absolutely unbelievable. An unforgettable game, one we'll be talking about years from now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into some of our injury updates here around the NBA. I mean, it's a big one. Devin Booker out at least 4 weeks with a groin strain. Given how compact the Western Conference is right now, this could be a very big deal for the Phoenix Suns, who look, ultimately they're a team that just needs to be healthy come playoff time. But this is going to be a challenge for them now, and could ultimately shake up the way the seeding looks for the playoffs this year.
Yeah, the Suns they're scuffling a little bit. They're only 4-6 in their last 10. They are really not playing well on the road at all, which is where you generally tend to need your stars to come through, because your role players generally play a little bit better at home. And they've gone through a lot of different stuff health wise with a lot of guys in and out of the lineup. So this is a tough spot. You mentioned the standings. They're 5th right now. They're 3 games out of first, so not bad, right, with how compact the West is. But if you look behind them, they're only 3.5 out of the whole postseason picture entirely. So that's not great. You slide, next thing you know, you could wake up, a couple losses in a row, and you're down in the play-in tournament, a couple more losses, and you might be out of the whole thing. So this is definitely something they're going to have to work through over the next month. And on top of it, Landry Shamet's banged up a little bit too. So what it makes me wonder is, do we see a little more urgency on a Jay Crowder trade?
Right.
New ownership. Do they get the green light to, hey, let's put Crowder and Dario Saric's contract together and really go add some, even more money, and go really fill a role here and fill some spots with this, because Cam Johnson's a ways off from coming back, if we even see him again this year. So I am starting to wonder if the Suns going to start to push and say, all right, it's trade time. We got to get something sorted here.
And these the discussions are not just Suns related, but around the NBA that are going to start picking up now. Once we get into January, people return from the holidays, and hey, it's a fun time of year. Trade season in the NBA, it is here. Alexei Pokusevsky is out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken left leg. Ouch. He's a fun player, and just from that sense, like it's a bummer to hear this, but OKC, they're not a team that's necessarily tried, but they've won more than we would have expected so far this season. And so to lose him, this is certainly a blow, averaging 8.8 points, 5.1 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks on the season. Now he's out 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and they're going through it in their front court right now, because obviously Chet Holmgren's out long term, but they also lost Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who generally starts quite often for them up front. So he is out. Now Poku's going to be out. That really leaves Mike Muscala as the only true 5 left on the roster. They're not in a position where you're saying, like we just said with the Suns, maybe it's time to make a trade. The Thunder aren't really there, but it does make me wonder, do they look at, all right, we got to do something with our 2 ways and maybe switch it out and bring in another big or something like that. Because what you want to have is you don't want to play such weird oddball lineups that it makes it hard to evaluate the rest of your guys. And that's where that gets a little tricky. So we'll see where it comes down. And for Poku, it just sucks that these are lost development minutes. He was getting a ton of minutes and playing a lot, and he was actually starting to play pretty well consistently. He'd been a guy who he'd play a good game, then he'd kind of look bad for 2 or 3 games, and he play well and then kind of disappear for a week. And now he was starting to put together a string of good performances in a row. So that stinks that he's out.
That's it. I see this response from fans a lot, like Cade Cunningham, right? His injury. I saw a lot of, well, the Pistons are tanking anyway, so this is just going to help them get Wembanyama. Well, I guess if you want to look at the silver lining, but the downside is you lose a year of development. Like there's value to being on the floor and playing NBA basketball in terms
Because
of
they're going to lose
growth.
those games anyway, so it
Yeah,
doesn't matter, right? Like,
right.
yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's certainly a bummer to hear this go on with Poku. Some positive news. Andrew Wiggins will be back soon, who was fantastic in the playoffs last year for the Warriors. The Warriors have they still have a bizarre record where they've cut the best road or the worst
Best
road
home.
record and
Yeah.
the best home record in
Yep.
the NBA.
15-2 at home, 3-16 on the road.
This has got to be the latest in the season that's been the case. It's got to be, right? Where a team could have both of those designations.
Yeah, and what I think it is I think their stars are not the super duper stars anymore. Like when I watch their games, remember back at kind of the peak of their powers, it would be the Warriors starters would come out of the game, hand the bench a 15-point lead. And then if the bench gave up, 5 or 6 points of that, whatever, then they'd come back in and they'd cruise the rest of the way. Now it's like, come on, they hand like a 6-7 point lead to the bench, and then the bench gives all of it away, and it all kind of crumbles. And I think part of what happens too is young players and role players generally play better at home than they do on the road, and they're relying on a lot of young players and a lot of role players. So it's been tough for them to find much traction. Now Wiggins, they openly admitted he was out longer than they thought he would be with this adductor strain. Then he was all set and cleared and ready to come back from that, and he got an illness. There's definitely, I think it's the flu going around the NBA
It
right
has
now,
been.
and this is like a real flu because there's been a lot of games where a lot of teams guys are questionable or they're out last minute and those kind of things, and it's all with these non-COVID illnesses, which I'm guessing are the flu. So yeah, getting Wiggins back is going to be good. Hey, they're hanging in there though, right? They're despite the goofy home road split, they've won 3 in a row. They're back to 500. Stay around that until Steph gets back, and if the West stays tight, they're going to make a run, and they're going to be in the mix to definitely get into the top 6, and that's where you want to be. You just want to avoid the play-in tournament if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be their goal. And then look, this is a team where they don't look good right now, but if they can turn things around after the All-Star break, have a little bit of momentum heading in, maybe you make a move or two with some of your young players. We'll see. Maybe James Wiseman on the move or something like that. This can still be a very dangerous team come playoff time. This is not ideal, but I don't think this is the end of the Warriors either. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them start to turn things around once we get post All-Star break.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have a say the rest of the way.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I think that's about it for us today. Yeah, I think we got everything. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, as well as the podcast version over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.